Yes, hello everybody, and welcome back once again to the Dynasty Hot Seat. It's the only Dynasty show that's a certified inferno, and we're back once again with a startup mock draft. It's startup season, and we've got one of the best in the business. Whenever you think UK fantasy football, you think Tom Strachan, you think the guy that's basically running Fantasy Pros. He does everything over there for him, and of course, he's the co-creator of the amazing Fantasy Sanctuary over there with Rich. They're doing a brilliant job. He's the man, the myth, the legend. It's T-Strack, ladies and gentlemen. Tom, great to see you. Welcome back on the hot seat. I've missed you.
Yeah, I've missed you too, man. It is always a pleasure to be here in the hot seat. I'm so pleased for you to hit that 1,000 subscribers mark. And anyone who hasn't already, take this as my personal endorsement. Hit that subscribe button right now because Mags absolutely killed it over the years on this channel. Some of the best content around, and you will not regret it.
I absolutely love it. We're gonna smash this mock draft. Let's get right into it. All right, Tom. You've chosen to go from pick number 6 here. We got a tight end. We got no tight end premium on this, but we are super flex. I'm drafting along with you. I've taken the 12 slot to try and play into this third round reversal. Before we dive right in, third round reversal seems to be the norm now. What do you think about that? Do you like that?
Yeah, I do like it. I think it adds a layer of intrigue to what you want to choose. Do you want to go up top to make sure you get one of the elite quarterbacks, or do you want to go towards the back end where you can find a more balanced build? In this one, I've taken the 1/6 because I think it's probably going to give me a little of both. But I know my guy Rich over at does all our dynasty stuff on the Fantasy Sanctuary. He likes the idea of fifth round reversals because he thinks that would make things even fairer. So I'm very much on board. I think now if you're doing a dynasty startup and you've not got that, or at least not had the conversation about it, then you're missing a trick.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's good to keep innovating, keep moving, and we're gonna get moving right now. We're gonna start this draft and see who falls to at pick number 6. Obviously, for you, Tom, the dream is Lamar Jackson falls to you all the way. I should have said anything, Tom. He goes, "What? Oh, this is off to a terrible start." If you want to call it quits now, Tom, I'll understand.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun hanging out with you, Max, but I'm going to bounce. No, I mean, this is still a pretty good situation for me. I am going to take Joe Burrow. He finished last year on an absolute tear. And then when you consider the fact that the Bengals haven't done an awful lot on defense to really get any better, I think we're going to see another incredibly efficient season from Joe Burrow. When you talk about pocket passes, you're always looking for ways that they can elevate themselves to land near the dual threats like the guys Lamar, Josh Allen, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts. But Joe Burrow has been able to do that because the Bengals defense has been so awful over the last few years. You go back to last season and he had 6 games over 25 fantasy points. That is incredible for a guy who offers virtually no rushing platform whatsoever. He averages a mediocre, 12.6 yards per game, which is nothing. But I'm just counting on him being able to throw. T. Higgins lockdown, Jamar Chase lockdown, Mike Gesicki still on the team. There is enough there that Joe Burrow can be productive for a long time. And look, even though I'm a Ravens fan, the Bengals are a fun team to watch.
Yeah, they absolutely are a fun team to watch, especially when they're crashing out of the playoffs, Tom. That's my favorite time to watch the Bengals. I'm going to go. I've been toying with different experiments and different types of setups whenever I've been drafted along with a guest. So, Tom, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to try and draft the youngest possible team that I can here and try and go through. I mean, I know that you don't like this term. I don't particularly like this term either. And I'm thinking we have to coin a better way of saying productive struggle, right? There's got to be a better way of putting it.
Yeah, I think it's also one of those terms that just I think confuses people. If you're a relatively new dynasty player, or if you're somebody who hasn't been playing for a long time, productive struggle, it's one of those phrases you hear bandied about and you go, what does that mean? What does it mean? And when you Google it, like Google productive struggle, are you even really finding any answers to it? So I think that there's a lot of terms in fantasy that make a lot of sense, zero RB, hero RB, for example. But productive struggle just feels like one of those that if you refined what it was called, it probably would be less scary to a lot of people. But the actual theory is spot on and definitely something that's worthwhile.
Yeah, so I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to draft a team of young guns, and hopefully they're all develop and flourish all at the same time. So I'm going to start off. I'm still going to lock in a young QB. I'll take Caleb Williams, who I still believe in. I think that he could be an excellent player this year with that new setup over at the Bears. And then I'll go ahead and I'll take Malik Neighbors right after him at the 2-1, a super young wide receiver. Caleb Williams, I find myself becoming higher and higher and higher in him as the offseason goes on, Tom. I don't know if that's the Ben Johnson effect or what. What are you thinking about Caleb?
Yeah, so we had Ryan McDowell from DLF on the channel last week, and he was talking about how he dislikes his ADP in startups. And I think you've gone beyond that, definitely. So, like, you're very much on the positive end of the scale. But when I heard Ryan saying that he didn't like his ADP in startups, I disagreed because I still very much believe in Caleb Williams. I think he's got one of the best upgrades that you could possibly have this week off season in Ben Johnson. And while there are reasons to be negative about Caleb Williams, you hear all the negative reports that his personality perhaps wasn't the best last year. But Shane Waldron, coaches who had little interest in actively helping him and actively making his life easier. So I believe in Caleb Williams. I think that he's a player who could take a substantial jump in year 2. Obviously, we kind of went through similar situations with Trevor Lawrence, where it was like, the QB promised and it never really materialized. But Caleb Williams also he has that rushing floor a little bit better than Trevor Lawrence, averages 29.5 rushing yards per game. Didn't get in the end zone on any rushing touchdowns last year, but it just feels like, okay, if you can give me 30 rushing yards per game, and if you can give me a little bit of an uptick in touchdowns, a little bit of an uptick in yardage, then Caleb's got everything he needs to be able to succeed. And the offensive line additions are going to be massive for helping calm him down.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what he's going to be able to do. And Tom, that puts you back on the clock. Who you adding to Joe Burrow for your team?
Well, there's a lot of different ways I could go here, and I don't particularly enjoy having to make this decision. As Puka Nacua, Nico Collins, Drake London, all towards the top. Amon-Ra St. Brown is the pick for me, though, because there are people out there who are worried about Amon-Ra St. Brown this season, and I just do not see it. Amon-Ra St. Brown has had more touchdowns every season in the NFL than the previous one. Last year, he got to 12. Previous season, he was at 10. He earns volume at a really high rate. And whilst the Lions have evolved and incorporated Jameson Williams more often, I just don't think it's ever going to come at the expense of Amon-Ra, particularly now with the Lions' offensive line. Keep talking offensive line, but I think it's so important for these kind of fringe quarterbacks. Jared Goff is going to be spooked by the fact he doesn't have Frank Ragnow, an all-pro center. He doesn't have Kevin Zeitler, a Pro Bowl guard. And if you've got pressure coming up the middle, you're going to look to get rid of the ball quickly, and that's going to be much better for Amon-Ra St. Brown than it will be for Jameson Williams.
Yeah, Amon-Ra St. Brown's just one of those guys you just can put in and trust and be super happy with. I mean, the big question is, who did the headstand better? Was it him or Drake London, Tom? I mean, that's the big question.
Man. Well, look, we've argued plenty about Drake London over the last year and a half, but I'll give you that one. But Amon-Ra, I think he did better.
Yeah, I almost took my first Drake London share recently. Do you know that? I was this close.
Literally, I'm in a dynasty startup at the minute, and he went 2 spots ahead of me, and I've been pretty annoyed. And part of me wanted to take him just for a bit of equity.
Yeah, I'll get there. I'm coming around with him and Michael Penix, Tom. I'm excited for that combo. I'll get my first Drake London share this offseason. I'm sure of it. So I can't get him here. He has gone, unfortunately. I am back on the clock. I'll go ahead and I'll take a guy I still believe in, and he is following an ADP. Marvin Harrison Jr. at the start of the third round. I mean, he was just so good coming out of college. I just don't see how he's going to completely flop. We've seen rookies come in and have seasons like this. Wide receiver, what was he, 30, something like that? He was not very high up, but I believe that Harrison will bounce back and hopefully be up there among the elite. That's my hope anyway, Tom.
Yeah, I mean, you look what the Cardinals did for him last year. He had 7 games over 15 PPR points. He had 7 touchdowns. That's a respectable number of touchdowns. And among wide receivers with 75 or more targets. Harrison ranked 10th in yards per reception. That's a reflection upon the fact that the Cardinals, they were using him predominantly on downfield passes, deep passes for the first half of the year. From weeks 1 to 9, his air yards per target were 13.5, which is a big number. That dropped to 12.2 over the second half of the season. They started giving more in-breaking routes. And that was the point where things started to unlock a little bit better for him. I do think that they still need to do a lot more work in that, but there's no, like, this could be potentially one of the bargains of startup season. In a year, we're looking back and going, Marvin Harrison, that guy who we elevated to 12th overall in redraft and best ball, suddenly nobody wanted to take because of one season. Like, come on, this is Dynasty. We've got to stick with it. So yeah, I'm fully on board with that one. I am going to take a bit of a risk here, and I'm going to go and build the wide receiver room with Travis Hunter because, again, this is another guy who the upside is undeniable. I think that Travis Hunter is clearly going to play a lot on offense for the Jaguars, and I have no real qualms saying that, like, I'm shooting for upside. It's year one in a dynasty startup. I'm always a little more willing to embrace risk in a startup because my hope is that I'm going to win this year and I'm going to win next year. And if things don't pan out quite the way they are, a lot of these players are going to be at the best value I might ever have them on my roster, and I can make moves and I can make trades. So now feels like the time to be taking a risk potentially on Travis Hunter.
Yeah, Travis Hunter, he's more than any other player coming in this year. He's the one I'm looking forward to seeing play the most. I just think I'm so intrigued by what's going to happen, where he's going to swing him in. I had a guy on the show a couple of months ago who is a Colorado fan, and I asked, was like, does he, like, how often does he come off the field? Like, he goes to all the games. He's like, he doesn't come off. Like, he plays every single snap. He never takes a rest. That's probably not going to happen, you would imagine, at the next level. And all reports seem to point to he's going to be predominantly a wide receiver, which is probably why you're taking him this high, right?
Yeah, and look, we're going to see him out there quite often on things like third downs, obvious passing downs. It makes sense to do that. And I don't think the Jags defense is so good that they won't need to play him on those situations. But the way the Jags have been speaking about him, the way they traded a future first round pick to go and get him, you do not trade a future first round pick solely for a guy that you're going to use on defense. You don't even, you probably don't even trade a future first round pick for a guy you see solely as a wide receiver. But they view him as a special player. And I view him as a special player, and I'm willing to take the risk on it now. And I think that it gives me a fun start to this one. But I'm going to add a quarterback here. Sleeper ADP has got Cam Ward as the next QB on the board, but I'm going to go a little bit further to a guy who just got paid in Brock Purdy. I just think that the hate on Brock Purdy at times is a little bit ridiculous. Yes, he's not truly elite. Yes, he benefits from the Shanahan system, but he just got locked into the Shanahan system for the next few years at a relatively friendly deal compared to what some of the quarterbacks are getting. And I'm completely happy to say that I think Brock Purdy will be an ideal QB2.
Yeah, he seems to be like almost the new, I know they're very different players, but like the new Dak Prescott, where it's like the ultimate quarterback too. You're delighted if you can get him in your super flex spot. So I'm loving the start that you've made there, Tom. And I'm back on the board. I'm thinking QB as well here, but I do like building around these receivers as well with the kind of build that I've got. So I can see Cam Ward on there as well. I'm like, okay. I don't know if this is slightly controversial I'm about to do here, Tom, because I'm going to take Cam Ward and I'm back-to-back picks. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to lock in my third quarterback. I'm taking JJ McCarthy as well.
Ooh,
I don't know if that's controversial, taking three so early, but if I'm thinking long-term, I might as well get three quarterbacks early.
Yeah, definitely. And particularly with the idea that, you want these young players and you want to think long-term and lock things down. JJ McCarthy, by all reports through OTAs, has looked excellent. Cam Ward is as advertised. Yes, there's room for improvement. He's playing on a Titans team that they've surrounded him with the right things. They've got a good offensive line. They added Kevin Zeitler. They've made other additions there. They kept Calvin Ridley around, and then they brought in Tyler Lockett, who, as a veteran, maybe Tyler Lockett isn't going to give you more than half a yard after the catch these days before he falls down. But he's a savvy player and he's going to help whilst younger guys like Elik Iomana develop.
Yeah. Yeah. Was Lockett that guy? I might be misremembering, but he makes it a point almost to go down because he had one really
Yes.
horrendous head trauma, right? And now he
Yeah.
just goes down. He's not interested in any yards after the catch, but it'll still help Cam Ward anyway.
Yeah, the Self-Preservation Society is firmly in Tyler Lockett's wheelhouse, but you know what? Fair play to him, because if I got tackled once in the NFL, I'd be done. So
yeah, I'd probably fall down before I got the ball, Tom. I got to be honest with you. I don't think that would be my issue. But you're back on the clock. You got your 2 quarterbacks locked in. It's got to be great. 2 elite young wide receivers off to a smashing start. Who's next?
Yeah, so the roster you set up for this one, we start 3 wide receivers as well as 2 flex positions, which are wide receiver, running back, or tight end. Obviously, with only 2 running back positions, I could start a maximum of 4 running backs each week plus my super flex, and I could be starting 5 wide receivers plus my super flex. So for me, that just makes the wide receiver position so much more valuable. And this one kind of comes down to a decision of which wide receiver I'd like next. I would have liked if Ted McMillan had fallen this far, but he went 1 pick before my last one. So I'm going to take a shot on a guy who could be a second-year player, ascending in the offense, and who I'm expecting production from straight away because I do want to win straight away, and that's Rome Odunze.
Yeah, Rome Odunze, I think, is due for a big bounce back. Do you see him becoming, like, air quotes, the man over there in that Bears offense?
I'm not sure if he's going to become the man in this year whilst you've still got DJ Moore there, but I have a feeling that DJ Moore is into the last season of his deal, which makes it very difficult for him. Like, is he going to be there in the future, or do they decide that they can build around Rome Odunze? Obviously this offense has changed since Rome Odunze was picked, but I'm completely fine saying that Rome Odunze has enough talent that he's going to be very impressive still. So yeah, very much on board with the idea that Rome Odunze can ultimately get there. And I think that you look at this team and we don't really know what they want to be. Like Ben Johnson back with the Lions played a lot of 2 tight end sets. So we're going to see Cole Kmet and Colson Loveland on the field at the same time. Maybe. I have never rated Cole Kmet. I've never enjoyed the Cole Kmet experience, but I'm willing to accept that he's an NFL tight end who might have some moments. So, yeah, I think that Rome Odunze stands out as the guy who will give me wide receiver 3 production this year, and then potentially next year, if I'm getting more than that, then that's an excellent win for my dynasty roster.
You got to be pleased as well. You set off a bit of a wide receiver run there, so you didn't miss out on grabbing a 3rd receiver there with Odunze, and then tons of those guys, including your boy Zay Flowers, coming off the board. And you're back on the clock again. You going to continue this wide receiver room? What are you thinking?
Well, let's talk about a guy who's not a wide receiver, who I'm really struggling with in best ball. He's got an ADP of 44 on drafters at the minute. On Underdog, he's going at pick 57. It's RJ Harvey, and obviously he got good draft capital. I don't think I was quite ready for that ADP in best ball this year. And as such, I don't have an awful lot of him. But in Dynasty, getting him here, middle of the 6th round as my running back 1, I am absolutely not worried about the great J.K. Dobbins signing in Denver for RJ Harvey's long-term fantasy production. Now, we do know Sean Payton likes to use 2 running backs, but we've seen 2 good running backs can coexist in that system. We saw Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram work together. So as long as there isn't a running back drastically better than RJ Harvey, I'm completely at ease with it.
Yeah, I'm super excited about RJ Harvey. He was a guy I was screaming from the hilltops as one of my sleepers for this year, and then the draft happened. And I'm like, oh no, never mind. I've got less RJ Harvey than I want, sadly, but I'm so happy he got that great draft capital, and that puts me on the board. I would have loved if RJ Harvey fell to me, but he hasn't. So I'll continue to build young and kind of go around my young wide receivers in particular. I see a guy on the board here, didn't love the landing spot, but still trust the talent of Emeka Egbuka enough that I'm happy to take him at the back end of the 6th round. And then things become a little bit trickier for me because I'm running out of younger guys. You did mention him earlier. Colston Loveland is on the board. I don't have a lot of him just because there are a lot of mouths to feed. For the process of this draft, though, Tom, I'll take Colston Loveland, but I think it might be hard for me to trust him as my tight end 1. What do you think?
I think that's completely fine. I mean, I don't do dynasty rankings. I concentrate on redraft and best ball rankings, but I know Rich has him as his tight end 3 ahead of Sam Laporta. So for you
Okay.
getting him here at tight end 6, I trust Rich's rankings a lot.
Yeah,
I
me
trust
too.
that, he's very good at this. So I really like Colston Loveland. I think he's going to make an impact straight away. And during the rookie offseason process, it just felt to me that Colston Loveland was head and shoulders above Tyler Warren. And
Yeah.
to get that kind of affirmation from the NFL draft, that's how the NFL saw him as well. I think that we're going to see a really impressive guy who can do a lot of things well. And I think Ben Johnson is going to use him really well. So I think, look, you got Caleb Williams, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison, Cam Ward, JJ McCarthy, Egbuka, and Colston Loveland. You are definitely building for the future.
Yeah, definitely. It's the plan is working so far anyway, Tom. We'll see if this thing pans out in a few years or not. But for now, I'm happy with what I got. And you gotta be pretty pleased about your team as well. I'm sure you continue to build it strongly. So who you go with?
Yeah, so I wasn't going to go with a third quarterback. Typically, I don't like to go with my third quarterback early, but man, I just can't resist the value on Dak Prescott. Like, Dak
Yeah.
Prescott's somebody that we have seen not too long ago. So, what was it? It wasn't last year, but the year before. From week 8 onwards that year, he was 0.1 points behind Josh Allen as the QB2 in points per game. Dak Prescott has done it. Yes, this offense has gone through numerous iterations, but we are seeing a team that has willingly run their running back room into the ground. There is nobody
Mm.
there. What have they done in recent weeks? They've added George Pickens. Now, I wasn't overly high on George Pickens last year or the year before in Pittsburgh because they had terrible quarterback play. But you give
Yeah.
me Dak Prescott, a guy who can actually throw the ball well, and George Pickens as a wide receiver 2, whilst you've got CD Lamb, who continues to earn volume at just one of the greatest levels across the league. And
Yeah.
I think that that is the secret sauce for the Cowboys this year. Like, there's still enough there for me to believe that Dak can be a very good quarterback, and particularly as my QB3, I'm willing to take him. And it's not necessarily a case of me saying I need someone like Dak as my QB3, but it's also about building potential value in this roster and not giving up value that I could have had, because tomorrow somebody in this room is going to be looking at their QB room and start to get hungry and come knocking on my door, and I could trade either Brock Purdy or Dak Prescott for a running back or a wide receiver if I need one, or future picks, and I'll feel very happy about it.
Yeah, that is one of my. I suppose bugbear isn't really the word because it's something I exploit quite a lot, so I'm quite happy for it to continue. But if we have a look at the draft board there, Tom, you can see right before you, Alvin Kamara went and Joe Mixon went. Can you imagine a world where you see trade confirmed, someone trades Alvin Kamara and gets Dak Prescott back? People are going to be furious in the chat.
Yeah, exactly. It's just it's staffed, and we have a saying, Fantasy Sanctuary, we've got it literally printed on t-shirts. You draft for talent and trade for need. And that's
Yeah.
sometimes what people find so difficult. It's not just Dynasty, it's redraft. People feel obligated to try and fill out their starting roster positions. And that team, Team 7 next to me, they've got, in their first 4 picks, they've got 3 wide receivers, they've got 1 quarterback, and then they move on to the running back, and then it's like, we'll throw a tight end in there. And I'm not knocking all those picks. There's plenty of good picks within it, but that's not how I would like to build a roster, and it's not the way that I think sets you up for success.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. You gotta be thrilled getting Dak, who we just described as the ultimate QB2 as your QB3. So that's fantastic. And you're back on the board again, Tom. Where are you going?
Yeah, so this kind of tier gets a little more difficult for me. At tight end, there's not really anybody I want to take right now. There's about 4 or 5 different names who I think are kind of okay,
Mm.
and we'll probably circle back to in the next round. Running back, Brian Robinson, DeAndre Swift, James Conner, Travis Etienne. It's all the question mark guys. It's all the guys who are a little bit.
Yeah.
I will have to start chucking volume at the running back position soon. But right now, we've still got room to keep filling out the flex positions on this roster. So I'm just going to keep pushing the wide receiver buttons. And there's Mike Evans at the top of ADP, Luther Burden, Brandon Ayuk, and Jaden Higgins. The one thing I don't have right now is a rookie wide receiver. So I'm going to take Jaden Higgins. And I know people are worried about him and Nico Collins together, but I think that there's enough with Christian Kirk or Jalen Noel to clear out the underneath and to make life easy for Jaden Higgins. The Texans seem to be in a similar kind of position to the Bengals, where it's like, okay, our offensive line is going to suck, but that's okay. We're just going to throw the ball as often as possible, and we're going to trust in our quarterback, and we're going to surround him with weapons. And I've got faith that CJ Stroud is potentially going to be one of the values of this offseason, and I want to be invested in the Texans because that AFC South, it's not good.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's Higgins. I think has got a really nice chance to just have a real solid like season, not as the main focal point of that Texans offense, because that's obviously going to be Nico Collins, but that's going to leave Higgins with a lot of one-on-one coverage, and I think he could thrive with that next year. So it's going to be great to watch Higgins and Noel as well. I think he'll slot in really nicely into that team too. Texans are building something really exciting. And I'm back on the board. I see guys there like Devontae Adams there. He doesn't fit my build. I'm gonna have to just completely ignore Devontae. There are some guys here that I do like that do fit my build. Sticking with the young wide receivers, I'm gonna go. I'll take a shot. I did not mean that, Tom. I was said to take a shot on Ricky Pearsall. Did not mean that. That was last off season's jokes. I'm rehashing old material. I'll I'll
It's a shame.
I'll take Ricky Pearsall, and I'm also going to take. I take a Trey Harris. I just can't stop thinking about Trey Harris plus Justin Herbert equals good. Right? Got it.
Yeah. So at this point, okay, you're sat and building for the future. And for people who maybe haven't done a productive struggle type startup like this, at what point do you start going, okay, now shall I start scooping some running back value, some of these veterans, and see whether all these rookies could put it together in year one and help me challenge? Like, are you at the point where your next picks will be leaning towards that?
Maybe. I think whenever I run out of receivers that I like, I'm like, when I start like making faces at the receivers, then I'll probably start hitting running backs. But for now, I'm happy just to build because there are still like question marks with those, like with Ibuka, with Pearsall, with Harris. I don't expect them all to work out. Some of them are going to crash out. So I'm like, let me just gather enough of them so at least I'll get one of them to hit, and then I can worry about trading for older running backs later if I'm not worried about year one. If I'm moving into year two, that's what draft picks are for sometimes. If I got a young enough team, I don't really need those draft picks to make it any younger. So I'll just use those to go and trade for the running backs.
Love it. Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. So back to me. I was a little bit torn on whether I should take this guy in the last round, but I'm going to take him here, and it's a guy on the back nine of his career, probably in James Conner. But I think like the
Yeah.
build I've got is it's definitely a little bit in on this year. I could always use Dak Prescott or Brock Purdy plus James Conner to upgrade running back position if I wanted to. I don't think that James Conner is as bad as some people think. I think, the fact that he has missed time at points, well, that's less wear and tear potentially. Like a lot of his injuries have been little niggles, they haven't been particularly bad.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, he had the sixth highest explosive run rate amongst running backs with 100 attempts or more. And he had 75% of the Cardinals carries inside the 5 yard line, which was the seventh highest rate. Like, there is a lot to like about him. I know that Rich talked recently about Trey Benson being a value, and I don't disagree, but I think that James Conner in the ninth round is worth it for probably 2, maybe 3 years.
I'm slightly afraid Trey Benson might be like the next Alexander Madison, where you're just waiting for him to get the chance and it just doesn't come. Like it's just like James Conner will keep going, like Dalvin Cook just kept going and kept going, and he won't get his chance because James Conner's too good.
Yeah, no, I very much can see that. It's and I think the way that the Cardinals talk about James Conner as well is so effusive, and it's so enamored with him. Like the money they paid him this offseason, they didn't need to do that. The Cardinals aren't a team that's ready to compete straight away. They're probably going to take a step forward, but I don't think that they felt that they had to give Trey Benson more touches this year because of what they were seeing on the practice field. So, yeah, I think there's a definite positive case for him. Back to me, and I'm going to take Isaiah Likely. I was hoping Mark Andrews might fall to me, or Tucker Kraft, but Isaiah Likely's the next one I like, ahead of David Njoku and Jonnu Smith. Jonnu Smith wants to go to Pittsburgh. What an idiot. David Njoku, QB purgatory forever. Isaiah Likely, I would expect a contract extension from the Ravens at some point in the next few months. Mark Andrews and Likely, both free agents after this season. Isaiah Likely just put it together in such a convincing way last year. I think we've seen what he's capable of. And while I'm probably going to need another couple of tight ends to make this roster feel safe, I think we can get there because there's enough veteran guys available later in the draft and enough people that I won't need to draft highly. That as we get further down, guys like Dallas Goedert, guys like Cole Kmet, even, well, Chigakonkwo, Hunter Henry, these guys who can help me fill out a tight end room for now, whilst waiting on a year from now, Isaiah Likely's potential to be realized.
Yeah, like it's always nice to hear coming from, when you have people on who are fans of that team. I always really like to hear because you'll have more of an inside track about what the Ravens plan is with Isaiah Likely and with Mark Andrews. So it's nice to hear that, they've definitely got him in mind, and he's got better every single year. And maybe the best meme on NFL last year was like, how many beers am I having after the game? And it's like the Likely 80. That's superb.
Yeah. The worst part is he wants the number 1 jersey, but the Ravens, he wants the number 1 jersey, but for quite a while, Lamar has said that when the Ravens win the Super Bowl, he's changing over to the number 1 jersey.
Ooh, I love
so,
that. Yeah, so
likely he's never getting his hands on it.
No, Lamar wearing one incoming very, very soon. Let's hope for you anyway, Tom. No, Tom,
please, I'm
at a spot now where I see a name at the top of the ADP, and this guy has been talked up everywhere I look. I did the whole pre-draft rookie process, and I was like, this guy's okay. What are your thoughts on Jack Besh? Are you going to be able to sell me on Jack Besh here, or are you scratching your head thinking, why is he going so high as well?
Yeah, I mean, what is the upside case for Jack Besh? That's something I struggle with. I think that I like Jacoby Myers plenty. I really like Brock Bowers because I have eyeballs, and I really like Ashton Genty. So if we're saying that Brock Bowers, bona fide stud, somebody who we can expect 80 to 100 receptions every single year, minimum. If we're saying that Ashton Genty could see 300 plus touches this year, and then Jacoby Myers is possibly going to see around 100 targets a year, what's that leaving for Jack Besh, who isn't necessarily a bad bet on a lot of stuff, but he could end up being reliant on sort of scheme touches and winning versus zone compared to just natural abilities. I think that he does have the ability to play inside and outside, and that could offer some versatility that the Raiders are after. But round 2 just felt like a complete shock for me. I didn't see him going in the top 60 picks. And I just think that he's going to be more middling rather than any kind of elite upside. But if you've got any pushback on that, and if you can pitch me on him and sell me on him, I'm willing to be converted.
That's kind of why I asked you. I'm at that same position. I'm like, someone please tell me why he's going so high. I can't think of it myself. But yeah, maybe the next guest. I'll ask a few people, see if I got any Jack Besh believers out there. But yeah, I don't see it yet. Tom, I'm going to take 2 massive swings here. You ready? I'm
Love
gonna
it.
I'm gonna take two huge big swings. I'm gonna take Anthony Richardson in the 10th round because of the potential value there. If he does put everything together, would be absolutely incredible. And we just talked about him. Give me Trey Benson in the 11th. Maybe he'll take over. It's two big swings. I feel I'm happy with my team, but now I feel like once I get to the 10th round, I start making faces when I draft. I don't know if you're the same.
Well, I mean, you just made me make some pretty crazy faces. I was not expecting Anthony Richardson, given the news today, Thursday, the 5th of June, that Anthony Richardson is dealing with a shoulder injury to the same AC joint that he's dealt with problems before.
I missed that
Look,
news. I can't lie. Missed that news, Tom. Wish you told me that before.
yeah, we just rewind and take that one back. But yeah, so look, I mean, I was big on Anthony Richardson in year one. I think it's undeniable the amount of rushing upside. Like I did a deep dive into dual threats a couple of years ago about what makes a top 10 quarterback and a top 5 quarterback. And the things that I found was that if you were rushing for 35 or more yards per game, that's typically where the top 5 QB performances come from. Otherwise, it's incredibly hard to get there. Anthony Richardson last year averaged 47 rushing yards per game. When you look at late round QBs in redraft and best ball ADP currently, Anthony Richardson is the only quarterback after pick 130 to average more than 20 rushing yards per game. His undeniable upside is clear to see, but I just think the Colts are pretty sick of his shit at the same time.
Yeah, they might be. Although he might get another chance when Daniel Jones gets a shot as well. And yeah, it's gonna be
Yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of fun over there. Hopefully, I'd love to see Richardson put it together just because he's fun to watch. But that shoulder news, that's grim. I can't lie, that's grim. But Tom, you'll cheer me
yeah.
up with your next pick, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely. So let me just have a quick look here. I think there's a lot of intriguing options when it comes to running back position. There's some that I just don't want whatsoever. But I'm going to reach down for a guy who, if we had the sleeper sound effect on right now, I'm sure he'd be going reach or whatever that horrible sound effect is.
Yeah.
I'm taking Jordan Mason. Jordan
Ooh,
Mason is
yes.
somebody that I really expect to have a good season this year. The
Mhm.
Vikings had very little draft capital going into the draft, and they still used one of those picks to go out and get Jordan Mason instead. Jordan Mason, when you look at how he played last year, he forced missed tackles at the 6th highest rate among running backs. He also had the 7th highest yards per carry on zone concept runs. That's exactly what the Vikings want to do. They want to use zone concept runs. So,
Mhm.
very much expect Jordan Mason to have a sizable role. Aaron Jones is somebody who I struggle with a bit at his age. He seems to keep getting banged up. So
Yeah.
I'm not desperate to have him. And I've just got to keep filling out this running back room because I did ignore it for quite a while. So after taking him, now it becomes like this is the dart throw area, isn't it?
Yeah.
Jaden Blue's right towards the top of ADP, but I
Mhm.
cannot get there. I think that's too much of a reach on a guy who we just can't do this. We can't just assign the rushing values to a guy because there's nobody else there. So instead, I'm going to keep going at the tight end position. I'm going to go a little bit of youth and go a guy who I really liked as well in Mason Taylor. He felt like somebody who, uh, as draft season went on, really kind of rocketed up draft boards. You must have seen that in all the mocks you did, Mags.
Yep. Yeah, he started to appear like he started off as people's sleeper picks, and then he started, creeping up, and even to the point where when everyone was starting to talk about Harold Fan, and you seen that switch, and like Mason Taylor just started to overtake him as pretty much locked in as most people's tight end 3 actually out of the class there. So he's going to be the way I seen Mason Taylor was, and it was always sounded negative the way I said it. I was like, he's fine. Like he does everything really well. Like I can't really pick out anything. I'm like, wow, he's bad at that. But uh, he's one of those tight ends where he's going to have to get the usage. And over at the
Yeah.
Jets, you don't know what's exactly going to happen with him. So I think he's got a shot at making it, and
Yeah.
he's a young guy as well.
He's probably not the ideal pairing with Isaiah Likely, in fairness, because what I could do with around Isaiah Likely is somebody who give me consistent production this year. Mason Taylor with Justin Fields isn't necessarily the recipe, but getting a guy who went 42nd overall in round 12 of the draft, I'm kind of okay with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just banking on that draft capital, and I'm back on the board. I do have Jaden Blue there as well, who you mentioned. I was like, okay, all right. I have a guy up here though that I just for whatever reason the last 2 weeks I've been drafting loads of this guy. I'd like to hear your opinion. Cedric Tillman. He's got
You
a
know,
shot, right?
how are we not talking about Cedric Tillman more? Like, it
Yeah.
seems that people went crazy on Cedric Tillman, and I
Hmm.
couldn't believe, like, I had a couple of rebuild teams where I sold Cedric Tillman for like the 201 kind of picks. It was
Hmm.
like people were desperate for Cedric Tillman, and then all of a sudden he dealt with a concussion. The Browns season was completely toast, so they didn't rush him back whatsoever. And then Jerry Judy breaks out in his place, and you go, okay, well, that's fine. We understand that, there was no need for him to rush back. But now, why is everybody completely down on Cedric Tillman
Yeah.
at the same time? Like, Cedric Tillman was balling out there. Now, obviously, the Browns quarterback situation is one which is going to be pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
But between well, it was a three week stretch between weeks 7 to 9 where he scored 18 points, 19 points, and 28 points in PPR formats, like three top 12 finishes. There are a lot of wide receivers on this board
Hmm.
who haven't come close to offering that in a single season.
Yeah, I was excited to pair him up with Darnell Mooney, but then I got sniped right at the last second. I was going to take both of those
Man,
guys.
I thought Donald Mooney would make it back to me.
Yeah, he was. I was definitely going to take him, but unfortunately, we both got sniped by Team 11, and I've got Tillman, and then you know what? Just with the build that I have, this is where I took a few swings at. I'll take. I don't like it. I'm kind of with you. I'll take that Jaden Blue swing. I'll take it. I don't love it, but he's kind of one where I don't trust that talent immensely. So if he does end up starting, I'm going to try and sell him pretty sharpish.
I think that's a smart way to address it. I mean, we're talking about a guy who went like halfway through the fifth round.
Yeah,
Teams spend that on guys who are going to play special teams only. And
yeah,
because of the state of the Cowboys backfield, everyone wants to anoint him as a potential hero within that running back. But like we've done this so many times. I mean, we mentioned Darnell Mooney. Remember the Justin Fields season in Chicago where everybody was paying like a fourth round pick in redraft for Darnell Mooney, and it
yeah,
didn't work out because it's not that simple. Now it's a little more simple at the running back position, but he's competing with Javonte Williams and Miles Sanders, two guys who are varying levels of cooked, but they have NFL experience and they have experience in pass protection, which really matters in the NFL. And it particularly
hmm,
matters for the Cowboys, whose offensive line is going through changes, shall we say. And Jaden Blue at 196 pounds is probably going to do okay in pass protection, but when you've got NFL players bearing down on you, it is a different game. And I'm just not willing to really risk a pick quite yet. I
yeah,
get why you did it, and I think in the build that you've got, it's definitely fun. It's definitely reasonable. But for me, I wasn't willing to do it. I'm going to take a guy instead who, again, it's we're into rookies from this year and
mm,
guys with question marks around them. But I'm going to take Rashad White. Like I like Rashad White. I
mm,
know there was a little bit of a swirl about whether Rashad White could be moved around the draft. Nobody got moved around the draft. And Rashad White has his role now. He was an inefficient running back who struggled in Tampa, struggled to give you good yardage, struggled to give you lots of yardage. But with the addition of Bucky Irving, it allows Rashad White to kind of fall back into that passing down role. And if there's one thing which Rashad White is really damn good at, it's the passing down role. So I'm very comfortable with him there. You know, we're playing full PPR. Now I've got a running back room of RJ Harvey, James Conner, Jordan Mason, and Rashad White. And I think that I can piecemeal together enough through the early season to figure things out the rest of the way.
Yeah, definitely. And he's a guy that, not long ago was right up there. He finished as a running back, what was he running back 12 at one stage? So he can obviously do it if he gets a chance. And I mean, if you're banking on running back staying healthy, like Bucky Irving, good luck. Like, have fun with that.
Yeah, exactly. It's a mixed bag for sure. So, and my next pick, like I'm going back to the wide receiver. Well, I haven't taken a wide receiver since round 8, and we talked about it. We start lots of wide receivers in this format. So I want a guy who has played 2 full healthy seasons in a row now, and has had a career renaissance. He might never have turned into the guy that people hoped when he was drafted, but today he signed his second contract, becoming the first Baltimore Ravens draft pick at the wide receiver position to ever sign 2 contracts. It is Rashad Bateman. Like, look, last year, nobody wanted Rashad Bateman. He was ranked as the wide receiver 71 in Fantasy Pros expert consensus rankings for redraft. Went out, had a career year, put up 756 yards, which was more than Deebo Samuel or Jalen Waddle. Scored 8 touchdowns. That was more than A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, or my guy, Drake London. And we know that touchdown production can be fluky from year to year, so we don't necessarily want to bet on it. But what Rashad Bateman really did was develop into a big play threat for Lamar Jackson. You Google Rashad Bateman highlights, and I know highlights are highlights. Yeah. But he came up big, and when Zay Flowers was injured down the stretch for the early rounds of the playoffs in the back end of the season, Bateman was balling. And if DeAndre Hopkins is able to play anywhere near an okay level on the outside, there's potential that Bateman can actually play in the slot more, somewhere which he's thrived when he's gotten the chance to do it, but he's rarely had the chance to do it.
How many Rashad Bateman shares do you own, Tom?
I own him on 30% of my teams in Dynasty. I have slimmed down my Dynasty teams a little bit this offseason, but not enough would be the answer, Mags.
Not exactly. Yeah, it was nice seeing him starting to come along. He was someone that, as a prospect, I was very excited about Bateman. So he's coming along. He's finally getting there. You had 2 seasons healthy in a row. That's huge for him. That was always the thing for Bateman. It was he couldn't stay healthy. So it's lovely to see that he's finally showing at least some of the potential that he has. And I got my last 2. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, I think one of the reasons I was so bullish on him last year, and we talked about this in Fantasy Sanctuary Discord a lot, was that he dealt with a lot of stuff off the field. Like he lost several family members in close proximity at the same time as the foot injury that had kept him out in 2023. He was told a matter of days before the season that they weren't sure if he was going to be able to play at all that season. And then he managed to play the entire season. So like he's dealt with a lot. And I think it's easy as fantasy managers to sometimes cast that aside and call someone a bum. But, sometimes when these details come out, you kind of have to go, all right, that makes sense. I'll give him a little leeway for that.
Yeah, definitely. It's hard to tell how much like off the field stuff affects people, especially. So well, I'm just happy for him that he's fit and healthy and getting that second contract. Good for Rashad Bateman. Hopefully he continues to build on 2 strong seasons. And I've got 2 strong picks left to go. Who am I going to go with though? It's kind of like, okay, let me go. I mentioned him earlier. I don't think this year he's going to do too much, but I think maybe his teammate might be Ofsky after this year. Harold Fannin Jr. over at Cleveland could be the starting tight end this time next year when we're speaking. And the other one, a guy I can't get enough of. I can't stop drafting him. Give me Alec Iomanner at the Tennessee Titans. You mentioned him earlier. He's got a chance going in. There's not a lot of competition. There's Calvin Ridley who's getting on a bit. Iomanner, Tom, whenever I first started doing the mock drafts of the rookies, people were taking Iomanner in round number 1 because they believe in that talent so much.
Ooh.
He's got a chance. And at wide receiver in the 15th round, I'll take that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, it's kind of one of those things where Now, in hindsight, it's easy for me to chuckle about and say, yeah. But I think that you say Calvin Ridley. I believe in Calvin Ridley. I think he's a good value this
Mhm,
year, but I understand why
mhm,
people don't. You say Tyler Lockett, and then there's not really much more. I think there was a Titans beat reporter last week who put out something saying that he expected Treylon Burks to be cut before training camp. It wouldn't be
mhm,
a surprise. So, what is the competition that Iron Man needs to get to not necessarily be the wide receiver one, but to be the wide receiver two, be on the field for two wide receiver sets in
mhm.
his rookie year, which is important. If you're not making two wide receiver sets, it is an uphill battle for you. So I'm very much interested in him. I think that if you're playing best ball or redraft, it makes a nice late round stack at the minute. And I see no problem with it at all. Just in terms of Harold Fanning, do you really think that there's a world where like the Browns are shipping Njoku out to recover draft capital and rebuild, or do you just think it's like that kind of thing of new quarterback will come in at some point if they want to just clean the slate a little bit?
Yeah, I think it might be a bit of a clean the slate. I'm not sure what Njoku's contract situation is like, but it just feels to me like they're not going to take him on for another contract. He'll play whatever he's on now, and then that'll be that for Njoku. I don't see why you would draft a young tight end like Fannin to not ultimately want him
Yeah.
to succeed.
Yeah, definitely. I can get on board with that. So my last pick, and it is going to be a tight end. I talked about this tight end room. Look, 15 rounds taking three tight ends is possibly not ideal, but there's enough talent at running back out there that I'd be considering that over the next, say, 10 rounds, I'd be confident in what I can do there or what I can trade for. So I'm going to take Hunter Henry to shore up this
Mm-hmm.
room. Hunter Henry,
Yep.
who is age 29, and perhaps that's a little older than some people would like, but over last year, he averaged 6.8 points in games with Jacoby Brissett starting, and then he averaged 11.1 points in games with Drake May starting. He needs some positive touchdown regression. He only had
Mm.
two in the whole of last year, and I think only both those did come in games with Drake May. But the Patriots on the whole, they weren't a high scoring offense last year. If Drake May can take a little bit of a step forward, if some of the offensive pressure can be off him, now they're not relying on Kayshon Boutte and Demario Douglas as much because they've got Kyle Williams. Maybe Jalen Polk could do literally anything at some point. That might be nice.
That'd be nice. Yeah, yeah.
Then Hunter Henry, I think, is going to be an absolute weapon in the red zone and score enough touchdowns for between Isaiah Likely, Mason Taylor, and Hunter Henry. I can play enough matchup stuff and feel confident each week.
Absolutely love it, Tom. And that does bring us to the end of our draft. We went through 15 strong rounds. Tom, I'll read you out this team of young guns that I've drafted, and then I'll pass it over to you to show me how it's really done. So I've got Caleb Williams, I've got Cam Ward, I've got JJ McCarthy, and I threw in a little sprinkling of Anthony Richardson in a quarterback just for a little bit of fun. Running back room, I wasn't too worried about it. As I kind of mentioned, I can trade for running backs later when I'm confident with this team. I got Trey Benson. I got Jaden Blue. End of list. That's I would draft some more later if we had some more rounds. I would have started taking some more swings at running back for sure. Wide receiver. This is where I'm really pleased. I've got Malik Neighbors in there, Marvin Harrison Jr., Emeka Ibuka, Ricky Pearsall, Trey Harris, Cedric Tillman, and Alec Iomanner as my wide receiver room, and then I got Colston Loveland and Harold Fannin Jr. in at the tight ends, average age of about 12, I think.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's a lot of ways that you could look at this roster and talk about things to do with it, but I think in just about anyone's rankings from the 2024 rookie class, you have the top three players. You have Caleb Williams, Malik Neighbors,
Mm,
and Marvin Harrison. And to be
yeah,
able to get them, as well as JJ McCarthy, who was probably no lower than what, like sixth, seventh last year,
yeah,
that's a
yeah.
huge win. All the guys who we know there is greater potential for them. So I think that there's so much to be excited about there. Obviously, the Anthony Richardson pick struggled a little with, but
Yeah.
apparently had a little bit more information than yourself on that one. So
Yeah.
we'll give you a free pass on that. But my team, the quarterback room, Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy, Dak Prescott. Like I mentioned at the time, I went with my third quarterback ahead of most teams in this draft, apart from yourself, which possibly isn't something I'd really enjoy doing normally, but it felt like an opportunity to create trade value and to create a conversation going forward and figure out any weaknesses I have. Wide receiver, Ramon-Ra St. Brown, Travis Hunter, Rome Odunze, Jaden Higgins, Rashad Bateman, which feels like a feisty five that I can work with. And then RJ Harvey, James Conner, Jordan Mason, and Rashad White at running back before Isaiah Likely, Mason Taylor, and Hunter Henry at tight end. I like it, man. Like, I'd be pretty happy with this team through 15 rounds. Obviously, there'd be plenty that I'd be looking to figure out in the later rounds. But for now, yeah, definitely okay.
Absolutely love it. To no one's surprise at all, Tom, you've come on and you've absolutely smashed it. And I've had loads of fun drafting my young gun team as well. Tom, sadly, though, that does bring us to the end of the show. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. Can you just remind everyone listening, where can they find all your amazing work online?
Yeah, man. I mean, there's a lot. It's busy time. Mondays, you can find me on the Fantasy Pros channel. I host a weekly best ball show with Andrew Erickson. You can also find that in podcast format. Also on Mondays, you can find me and Tyler in the best ball streets on Underdog. Everything else is on the Fantasy Sanctuary. All my written work at Fantasy Pros. You can find me on Twitter at NFL_Tstrack, or you can find me in the Fantasy Sanctuary Discord. Come and join us. Lots of fun stuff going on. You get access to all the Dynasty rankings, my redraft rankings, and much more. Plus, you can come and hang out with us in Manchester in a couple of weeks, just like the smart man to my right will be doing.
Yeah, you can come see cool, smart guys like Tom and Rich and other guys like me will be there as well. So it'll be a hell of a lot of fun. Really looking forward to it. Managed to get permission to go. It's about a week before my wedding, Tom. I got the green light. Like I didn't think that was going to happen. So I'm still going down to see you guys. It's going to be great. Maybe one of my last times drinking as a single man. So it'll be a hell of a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait. This has been an absolute blast, as always. Guys watching at home, remember, you need to like and subscribe to become certified, and we'll see you real soon.